Hello everybody, this is Miranda the Hybrid and welcome to Tutorial Tuesday. Before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to the increasing list of Patreons. Thank you guys. I was not expecting to get this far this quickly, but the fact that I have your support it's a really good feeling. And I'm really happy from all the comments I've been getting saying that I'm helping. That's all I really want to do. So at least I'm achieving one of my goals. And if you guys weren't here, it wouldn't happen. So with that said, let's get to the tutorial. Today we're going to be learning about how to draw bodies in perspective. This has been a many times requested tutorial, so I'm glad I'm finally getting down to it. It's not as hard as you might think. The beginning is a tiny bit tedious, but once you get the eye for it, once you kind of get your brain into gear, it's going to come faster and faster, and then as per usual, with practice, you'll get better. Remember, I didn't get as good as I am just overnight. It took about 20 years. So with that, let's grab the iPad, let's get to work. Hey there, Mr. Microphone, I'm gonna need you down by my boobs. This poor iPad Pro has been worked so hard over the last few days. Between finishing that giant Paganini illustration and all sorts of different kinds of work. It's been going through its paces. I was afraid when I bought it because it was like a $1,400 device that, you know, it wouldn't be worth it. But oh my goodness, has it been worth it. I think I've put more hours onto this iPad Pro than I have on my Wacom Intuos 4, my first ever drawing tablet. And I've had it for far less time. By the way, if you haven't seen my how to do basic perspective video, I highly recommend it, because that'll give you the base for what we're about to do. Here, I'll put the little thing up here for you if you want to quickly watch it before we get started. Since this is bodies in perspective, the first thing we're going to do is draw a human being. And I'm just going to make a human with general proportions. Nothing super fancy. The only thing we really want at the moment is discernible legs, arms, and a torso and a head. Let's call him Phil. So right now, Phil is sitting on a very point-blank perspective looking directly at you. I want to draw some bounding boxes around him, just so we can keep things in mind. Let's go from the shoulders down to his feet, top of the head, top of the morning to your laddies. Let's make the head its own individual box, have a line for the shoulders, have a line for the elbow-hip area, and a line for the knees. Now why is this important? It's important because, remember, make sure you watch that perspective video first. We're going to be shifting Phil's position. Let's make a horizon line right over here, and let's work with 2-point perspective. So if you remember from the previous video, there's a very specific way to lay out perspective, and we're going to put Phil's boxes in perspective. Let's work with his general box first, this height box. I'm going to use this grid to draw approximately where Phil's height would go. Let's imagine he's a giant. He's going to be stretching all the way up above our horizon line. So I'm going to draw these vertical, pull our perspective back, and again, I implore you to watch the perspective video I already made. It'll make what I'm doing right now a lot easier to understand. And there we have it, the box of Phil. What I'm going to do next is take these squares that we designated for certain parts of his body and draw those in too, lightly though. Here is the shoulder box. Next we're going to work on the box where about his belly hits. Then we need to put in the knee box. And there you have it, Phil's box, split up in perspective. The next part's kind of fun. You want to find out where the center line is driving upwards towards. So let's take a different color. Let's say yellow. Draw a diagonal line across the bottom and top of your boxes. Just like that. And now you can draw this line coming all the way down. This is the center line of your boxes, and it'll help you position where your person is. It's essentially like sticking a giant pole up their butt and spinning them around on it. Let's reflect that over here for him, just so we know exactly what it is. If you want, you can go even further and use that line right over here to reflect through the center and find the front of the box itself. Just like that. Let's make it a little bit of a brighter yellow so it's easier to discern. So, we made a fancy box. What do we do with it? You can start using this box to imagine where certain slices of fill are. I know that sounds super funky, but let me show you what I mean. First, you know that we made a box for Phil's head. You can kind of imagine in here a box coming this way. Remember to use perspective, drive it downwards. And within that, you know that his face is front facing, and then the head curves backwards. So essentially, you've made yourself binding boxes where you can slowly and carefully place your character. That head looks a little bit too big. I usually don't use this technique, but I find it's the easiest to teach with. Now, we know that Phil's shoulders occur from about here to about here. So we can push them upwards, and we know that his hips are happening right about here, circling around that pole. And you know his knees are right about in here. And see how I'm drawing the circles in perspective with everything else? Now look down at his feet. His feet come straight through the hips like this, and are planted in perspective as well. So just imagine his little footprints. This head is throwing me off so much, it's so out of proportion compared to the rest of him. But you also know that his neck is coming upwards in perspective, and his knees and his feet are going downwards in perspective. Now you know that his elbows are right around where his hips are, so it's going to be pointing downwards in perspective. And his hands are right above his knees. So you can start placing these things, and then start coming in and drawing your lines. So this is admittedly a painstaking way to figure out the perspective on a body. Is there any way easier to do it? Now, if you're talking about foreshortening, there is. What I want you to do, and let's use an arm as an example, is stick out your arm and take a look at it. You'll realize that your arm is pretty much a cylinder. So let's draw a cylinder. But specifically, a cylinder directly from the side. This means it'll probably look most like a rectangle. Let's segment it into 8 parts and draw perspective lines on the top and the bottom. There we go. Now what I want us to do is tilt it towards us in perspective. What this means is that this particular face over here is going to be pretty large, and it's going to taper down to the other side, just like that. The other side is going to be rounded off, and you're still going to have those 8 lines running downwards, but now the 8 lines begin curving with the shape. You still have the center line coming through like this. Let's put a little pinhole right there. Let's start attaching some of these lines inside of here. And finally, what if it's coming towards you, very much sharply towards you? You're almost going to have a sphere. It's going to taper down very quickly into the end of another sphere. And those 8 lines you drew are going to be clustered extremely close to each other. Almost to the point where they're too close to discern. But you still have the pinhole in the center, right? And you still have these driving through the middle and then down along the sides. Now, let's do the same thing, but with an arm. Let's draw the shoulder of a character, the bicep, forearm, and hand, kind of reaching downwards like this. We can curl over the fingers just to make it a little bit more easy. I'm going to choose a different color for this just so it's easier to differentiate. We're going to have our middle line over here that's 1, 2, 3. Imagine that this is the tip. Remember that's a circle. Remember that the deltoid and shoulder connections are also circles. And now let's bisect it. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can draw one coming down along this side of the arm, one closer to the top, and one closer to the bottom, exactly like we had with the cylinder. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. The deltoid and shoulder are going to remain in the same place, but they're going to be pushing towards you. Now if you look at your own arm, whenever you start pushing your own arm towards you, your bicep starts curling forwards, creating a very interesting circular shape to show that it's being forced in a certain direction. What do I mean by this? It has this bumpy thing right over here. And remember, these are cylinders, so if it helps, think of this cylinder coming over here and starting moving towards you in that direction. And then your wrist, another cylinder, all the way over here. Remember, it's coming towards you in perspective, so it's going to be getting larger. Forearm, You need to foreshorten it a tiny bit. Imagine your wrist. Your wrist is actually going to be a little bit flatter than this, but your hand is now slightly in perspective too. Just like that. And now, a big trick for you. When you're curving something circular, something maybe even cylindrical, towards yourself in perspective, you want to accentuate the lines right over here and here, and also right in here and here, because those are the lines that show you the curve. So let's finish drawing their body in here. Maybe a little bit of a lat, some rib muscles. And let me show you what's happening in the green. Wrist line, middle of arm line, and this is where the deltoid line is now. This is where the bicep line is. And then you can start splitting it up like this. So now it's coming towards us. And let's go to the most extreme one now. Look at them side by side. It makes a little bit more sense side by side. Let's do the most extreme angle now. The hand is basically coming towards you right now. Now look at my hand. You can barely tell what's happening right now with my arm. It's basically just a slightly cylindrical lump. And that's kind of what you're going to have to draw if you're drawing something coming towards you in perspective with the body. Imagine your deltoid over here, one circle, which is that area, this circle, which is your elbow, and your wrist right over here, which is actually more of a flat oval, right over there. And you just kind of connect them, draw some really, really extreme edges. I'm going to draw this person from the side now. Let's give them a bit of a face. And now we can imagine the wrist is drooping, fingers coming out. Let's put the hand downwards like this. And that's how to do varying perspective on a limb coming towards you. Now with bodies, you have to imagine something very similar. Instead of drawing those, obnoxious perspective lines, just think of the body as if you're slicing it apart. From the front, your torso may look something like this. Let's put our defining lines in here. Our defining lines will be the neck, the arms, the bottoms of the legs, the hips, the chest, and let's make a giant slice across here for the shoulders. Let's tilt it now. Imagine that you're kind of looking at them from a top-down perspective. Now remember with the bounding box we made before, if you tilt it forwards in perspective, it's going to kind of be like this. Now remember, these are all spheres that we just made. So you're going to have the head sphere up here, right? It's going to come down and hit in the middle of the shoulder sphere. This is our shoulder sphere now, right in there. It's going to go lower and you're going to have your arm spheres right here and right here. And this is where your chest sphere comes in and then over through the back. You can draw the body in here. And you have your hip sphere right there, the groin area, and then it goes down to the leg spheres. And see, in this picture, proportions are pretty straight, right? In this picture, proportions cut down to the side, just like they do in perspective. Let me outline this in green to make it a little bit clearer. So what I want you to do, when you're trying to draw a body in perspective, is split it up into geometrical shapes like this, that are a lot easier to put into perspective than a physical body. The human body is a very, very complex shape, and it has so many different parts to it. If you start splitting it up, it becomes a lot easier to understand. Now, boxes may work for you, or imagining everything is sliced up circles. Whatever way works. As a quick finishing demo, a kind of bonus thing, we're going to look at one of my more advanced drawings when it comes to perspective. Here we have Yelan. He's one of the main characters in my webtoon. Now, I will be frank, this took me a long time to figure out. Perspective's hard. I used reference for his face. So where's that hip box I was talking about? For him, it stretches this way, it goes around his belly, and it goes all the way around here, over the butt, and back that way. That's one line. What about his chest line? It comes like this, bounces over, disappears for a moment, bounces over here. It goes all the way around to his rather formidably strong back, and then loops and meets back here again. Same thing with the legs. Bounce over the muscle, and then dot, 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 till you meet it up. See? Just like the things we just practiced, he's just a bunch of ovals. You could technically even go to the fingers in this situation. They are exact same thing, just tiny itty-bitty ovals all over and over again. So as per usual, guys, thank you for the support. Make sure to drink your water, get your sleep, believe in yourself, and chase your dreams, because I know one day you're going to achieve them. I wish you all well, and I will see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.